Live your life, boy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Conspiracy Farm, where we don't start the conspiracies, we just add the water. And now, your host of the most state-of-the-art, most informed podcast on the interweb, I present to you Pat Miletich and Jeffrey Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for war?
Yeah, rear naked choke a Cocker Spaniel, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Bro.
Change the neighborhood up.
Conspiracy Farm. Go. Check it out.
Jeffrey, how are things down south?
I'm doing very well, man. We've had some actually pleasant weather today, kind of 50 degrees. The weather's a little schizophrenic around here in the Midwest area, as you know. Here, I'm in St. Louis, but, from Iowa, it's not too far. And that winter weather can be.
Well, was it sunny today? That's my question.
It was sunny, but it was like sub-zero a week ago. So it's just like, make up your mind. I guess they're saying, February is supposed to be super frigid. So we'll see. The weathermen, maybe we should have gotten into the weatherman position, because you can be literally wrong over 50% of the time and make a pretty handsome.
Well, but I think
wrong most of the time.
Well, but given our knowledge, we would be accurate all the time, because we'd be keeping a track, flight trackers on the weather modification planes, and whether it was going to be cloudy that day or not.
Chance going hard in the paint. Out of the box. I'm trying to keep it a little tepid, but yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And no, you are so correct. And I'm so glad you brought up weather modification. And I do want to do a quick debrief, if you don't mind. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone's 2023 is kicking off well. Our last episode with Tom McGreevy, check that out. Love that cat. But we had a chance to speak with Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, and you happened to bring up a little weather modification. I thought it was pretty cool. It's a real thing. I mean, I don't know why people think it's a conspiracy thing, but it's literally within a UN document. It's part of. I mean, we all know it happened. It's a thing.
And there's much more than it's much more than what they call cloud seeding. So we've got to help people be aware of that. But as you pointed out, G. Edward Griffin's documentary of a decade or so ago, talking about weather modification, right?
What in the world are they spraying? Without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, we had on Jim Lee, who just spoke, eventually, ladies and gentlemen, not to knock their hustle, but the UFC best of will be, or not UFC, my God, what did I say? The Conspiracy Farm best of will be on Red Voice Media. Stay tight, because we talked to a guy, Jim Lee, who talks about geoengineering, weather modification. It's absolutely real. They've been able to create, tropical storms a very long time. So it's no longer a theory, but, sometimes we have to. That's again, legislation is being worked on in a couple Midwest states to ban weather modification. So we'll see how that's going to go. I'll keep everybody apprised of that. The bills are being fine-tuned, so they will be forthcoming here soon. So I'm excited about that. But we could actually be very accurate meteorologists and get paid quite well and just skyrocket as stars of meteorology. But before we go into a conversation about whatever's going on in the world today, this is one of our episodes again where we delve into, current events, just kind of the zeitgeist of the world today. But before we get too deep into it, give me your thoughts, champ. We talked to Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. That's check off on the bucket list, agree, disagree with whatever on however he moves. We wound up talking to the freaking former head of the NSA, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. What was your thoughts on that conversation, brother?
I think, look, anytime you get a chance to talk to somebody that has risen to those heights within any business or government entity, obviously they have a lot of knowledge. Boone, Cutler, of course, same thing. And so both guys obviously extremely knowledgeable in fifth generation warfare. But, I think that I tried to bring up the point during that was they had the umbrella of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, over the top of, the Zuckerbergs and other folks that run pharmaceutical companies, that run big tech, that sort of stuff. And in my mind, I'm not sure if you look at it from their point of view, nation states don't exist anymore. Borders don't exist anymore. The only reason that they exist is to pit each other, to create the illusion that there are adversaries, right? Because the people will believe it. The people will believe it. But ultimately, when we really look at who runs things, the bankers, those types of folks, and the
NSAs, like you talk about, the non-state actors, man. We got to stop. Yeah. We got to get out of the whole notion of it's binary of Coke versus Pepsi. It's just it's a chess game, and most people are not even playing checkers, man. They're playing Candyland around here.
I mean, it's the atmosphere and the situations that are being caused and forcing people's hands to react the way that they have to in terms of what they deem best for their nation, for their citizens. Let's just imagine if since 2013 or so we had cartels and Mexican military and all of them being armed by the Russians and being massed on our borders, and a lot of this stuff going on. And I mean, you're looking at a massive nuclear or military reaction out of the United States if that's going on our border in Mexico. So that's what we were doing with NATO, with Ukrainian forces, and massing them on the border with Russia. And what do you expect? What do you expect Putin to do? So that's, yeah. But I think there was a little too, not too heavy on the China thing and all of that sort of stuff. But China's absolutely, I think the bankers and the people that run the planet just hop, skip, and jump from one superpower to the next and create them, and just continue to steal resources and destroy the planet. Basically, is what they're doing.
Well, and get to that China conversation, they just really engaged in a pretty massive war game over there around Taiwan. It's been such a contested area, obviously, and yesterday, within the last 24, 48 hours, engaged in a pretty massive military operation. Well, I mean, what do you see? Like I said, we talked to Flynn, and I honestly feel this whole move towards this like new Eurasia, if you will. It's happening right before our eyes without a shot. And Flynn emphasized that so much, and I think that's so important because that is the absolutely quintessential essence of asymmetrical warfare. I mean, you don't have to fire a shot, and you've engaged in so much, growth as far as your military. The economy's a little. What they've done as far as building the bases. You sent me something today in the Spratly Island war. I sent you something as well about war starting in the South China Sea. We've been talking about for a very long time. It just seems almost inevitable in this notion of Taiwan being the fulcrum point. I don't think it's necessarily Taiwan. I think it's about this whole region in the Spratly Islands and the innumerable tons of natural gas and oil that is in the Spratly Islands, as well as that one belt, one road, that maritime route, that string of pearls, as they call it, going around, South China Sea, Malaysia, the Philippines, into the Indian Ocean, Sri Lanka, Africa. I mean, this is next level stuff, and they haven't even fired a shot, champ.
Right. And I think it was last week, probably early to midweek, where a friend of mine who is, he's former military, let's just put it that way. But he's still quite connected within that world. And that was going on even last week. There were a lot of Chinese warships in the water there, and they were moving around and doing their thing, right? So, I mean, as he said, again, I don't know if I already mentioned this before in a previous show, but he said, without a doubt, the only contingency plan he has seen come across for the Department of Defense for our people and civilians in Taiwan who are there working is evacuation. There's no other plans that he sees. So basically what he said, what that translates to him is, we're going to go ahead and give up Taiwan.
To me, I don't know how much we talked about this on the last episode with Flynn, and I don't think we did because we didn't have much time. But the really geostrategic, Taiwan's important for multiple reasons, but as we expand in this technological age, TSMC, the Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company, they're the main company that processes all these semiconductors and microprocessors, which is like fueling this fourth industrial revolution, as we call it. They were the main places that were manufacturing those, and now there's been a new plant over in Phoenix, Arizona. So I wonder if that kind of takes it off the map a little bit. But I think it's more than just Taiwan, with the expansion of China's power in the Eurasian supercontinent, if you will, if you want to call it that.
Well, and it was the Trump administration
to get that kind of
the Trump administration created and moved that microprocessing chip plant to Arizona, right? So they saw this coming. They saw this coming. So that, good move by the Trump administration, at least on that. But we also have monetarily, financial system wise, we have, BRIC nations, China, Russia, even Brazil is moving that way, right? And Argentina and China have formalized their currency swap situation. So Argentina's oil is obviously going to be bought with Chinese notes, not the American dollar, of course, and so that's formalized now. Though they've made that legit, so that's some serious stuff for the American dollar.
In these trade agreements are just a huge part of warfare than anything else. And speaking about Brazil, man, you see what they just had. They had their January 6th, but it was actually January 8th. In that Bolsonaro, Jair Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil, who's now in U.S. not custody, but he's here in the U.S. with an intestinal. He's in a U.S. hospital with something about, anyway, he's sick supposedly, ironically enough, as his country implodes. He's been exported to a U.S. hospital. But what are your thoughts about what's going on there in Brazil, which is very reminiscent of January 6th, as the people of Brazil fight to protect their ultra right. I hate to use these kind of terms, but the right-wing conservative president.
The nationalists.
Yes, of course.
So they even had the guy.
They had
the guy in the buffalo hat.
They had the guy in the buffalo hat. Yes, I was just gonna say. I just saw a picture. No,
not the same guy, but the same outfit.
No, of course, not.
For the.
Yes.
So I sat there and I just went, okay, it's either a copycat, which it likely could have been, or they literally just shipped the script down there. And
that's what I'm
they're
saying.
Paying the players
that's
to
what I'm saying.
Break windows.
I'm waiting for Vince McMahon to step the fuck out and be like, this is some WWE shit, dude. This is seriously. They call it in the wrestling world. They call it gimmick infringement. In Brazil with the horn thing, he engaged in some gimmick infringement on the guy up here in January 6th. But I just found it so deliciously, weirdly ironic that almost the same thing happens January 8th, not January 6th. The guy, it's like you just said, did they just ship the script down there and made it happen? But there's some crazy stuff going on down there in Central America, very reminiscent of your Chile, your Guatemala back in the 60s and 70s, which is why they had to send down what, track 2 is what they called it, where the CIA went in and infiltrated and either assassinated or, coerced elections to bring in the right people, because, there was such a huge socialism / communism in South America and the Southern Hemisphere. I mean, it's been going on everywhere, I guess, but definitely back 60s, 70s, and here we are again.
Yes, and so the thing about Brazilians is they're much more aggressive. They're much more hot-blooded than Americans. They don't take shit. They will fight at the drop of a hat, every one of them. I had to fight a few of them, of course, and they don't mess around, man. They will straight up punch you in the face the minute you disrespect them. And so that comes from, their background of back in the 1800s, early 1900s, that if you insulted a Brazilian man in front of his peers, it was his obligation to kill you. Literally. If you didn't do it in private, if you did it in front of his peers, they would literally try and kill you on the spot. And that's just the way it was. You don't do that. You don't disrespect them. And that comes directly from the book, Tigreiro, about Sasha and Ernst Semmel, who went there. It's the greatest book in the history of books. It's better than it's better than Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay's account of climbing Mount Everest for the first time. That's the kind of books that I read, nonfiction, right? So anyway, in this book, dude, these Russian brothers in 1921 go to the Amazon for the diamonds. The Mato Grosso is what it's called. And their adventures of fighting Paraguayan strongmen, terrible Turks in catch-can wrestling matches. Sasha Semmel became what they call a Tigrero. The name of the book is Tigrero, where he killed 33 400-pound cats with a spear. He learned from a drunken Amazonian Indian. He had to buy the Indian cachaca, what they called it, and the Indian drank the whole way while they were on horseback going into the friggin' Amazon. This guy tracked a cat down drunk and killed it with a spear. And Sasha Semmel's watching this whole thing and learning, and then the guy taught him how the cats set on their paws, whether they're coming high, whether they're coming low, how to position the spear, everything. So here's this Russian guy traveling through Brazil. They would stop in villages and towns and do the fights with the Paraguayan strongmen and like I say, the terrible Turks and other guys like that. But they were engineers, so they knew how to fix guns. So they'd fix everybody's guns, get paid, and then they'd move further into the Amazon and just crazy stuff, dude. Crazy stuff, really cool. But
wow.
Anyway, shifting. So, but that's why there's so.
I would love to. I mean, yeah.
Well, they tried to do a documentary on it, and they were going to make a film. There is a documentary on the attempt at making a film. John Wayne was going to play Sasha Semmel, but that was in the 50s when they went down there to make the movie, and it was too dangerous. They couldn't do it because the Amazonian Indians were going to friggin' kill them. So they bailed on filming it. But I actually had read the book several times, and I was writing the script. I was writing the screenplay on it, and I got done with it, and I had spoken with Sasha Semmel's son, Sasha Jr., and we had talked pretty extensively, and I was like, man, I'd love to make a movie, with this, but, we both, I got busy with other stuff. He kind of started to ignore me. I don't think he was down for the whole project, but anyway, it's worth making a movie.
Yeah, it sounds so very fascinating. Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
Do a little deep dive on that, man.
But that gives you an idea about Brazilians, at least, as it went off on a tangent, of why Brazilians are going apeshit down there. It's not like Americans, where, they went into the Capitol and stuff like that, but you see inside of the buildings there, the government buildings there, they fucked everything up.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. It's next level. And then we're seeing, like, all this chaos. And like I said, Bolsonaro, I think his name is Jair Bolsonaro. He's in a U.S. hospital now, so he's obviously been evacuated. The chaos is that steep. So keep your eye on Brazil.
But that's the thing is, all of the people that are doing that obviously are Bolsonaro supporters, because I mean, again, it's a carbon copy of the American election in 2020, when a guy who stayed in his basement and shits himself won an election, and it's just hard to fathom that, right?
Are you telling me Joe Biden wasn't the most popular president ever, Patrick? Come on.
It's insane.
It's hard for me
the
to
whole
believe
world's
that.
Upside down. Everything's upside down. But,
it is. It absolutely is.
But to switch off of the political stuff, this is funny, dude. This is funny. I want you or somebody, myself, I want to write an obituary for the Mars lander. I'm going to write an obituary for it, because this is the emotional programming that's going on in this country. This is how clown world shit has become. Okay. So it says, NASA's InSight Mars lander sends heartbreaking farewell message back home. That's literally, and then this is NASA InSight's Twitter page. Listen to the message that the machine sent us people, us living human beings.
Sure.
Sentimental message back to the humans on Earth from Mars. My power is really low, so this may be the last image I can send. Don't worry about me, though. My time here has been both productive and serene. If I can keep talking to my mission team, I will, but I'll be signing off here soon. Thanks for staying with me.
Hal. That sounds like some Hal shit from fucking 2001. Dude, yeah, it's
God.
That's AI,
Yeah.
bro. I mean, we're seeing everybody
It's
posting
Hal.
their, like, AI picture, and it's no, not Hal. If you remember Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey. It was, this basically kind of actualized computer that was.
Yeah.
That's what we're going for. I mean, that was a long time ago, but here we are. I was offered a Twitter friend request or whatever you want to call it from, I forget her name. It's like, hey, I'm the AI such and such. They're just normalizing it, obviously, and we know where they're going with this as far as AI, the rise of the machines, as it were. But
yeah,
we digress.
Did you check and see what the AI, which gender it was, which pronouns it had? Did you check on that?
No, well, yeah, it appeared to be a gal, a lovely blonde Caucasian woman with blue eyes, and I'm sure they have many different iterations. But yeah, the rise of the machines is happening, dude. We're seeing it.
I just feel bad for like the ladies that decide to become lesbians, and then the first guy they hook up with has a penis. I feel awful for them.
We're living in weird times, Patrick J. We got what else do you have on your plate there? Got anything else on the news?
Some interesting stuff on the farming front, because obviously I'm spent some time learning about that. But the farmers have won a lawsuit to be able to work on and service their own tractors. Well, it was a rule where John Deere service centers had to.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
The right to fix legislation. I think it was called right to fix or something like.
Yes.
And that's definitely a big deal, dude, because that's yeah. There's a lot to that. There's so much microcircuitry going on in these John Deere units today. I forget the name, the latest one or the latest ones, but I think I read something about there's more microcircuitry and circuitry going on the latest John Deere tractor than there was on the original space shuttle, or the latest space shuttle, which wasn't much, but it's still pretty interesting. But the people who can go in and fix it themselves, even if they fix it themselves, they don't fix the what do they call it? The
warranty stuff. You can have
not warranty, but like not even just warranty, but like the code thing that will be going off. The warning lights will not, even though you fix it, they make it so you can't turn off that warning light. It's a very, very serious topic of the right to fix, because those are worth so much money and people leverage so much of their life and their treasure into these tractors.
Well, and I think it's not even
tractors anymore.
That brings to light for me the thought processes of, what about, the ability to shut off, when the Russians stole a bunch of John Deere equipment and took it into Russia, and then John Deere remotely shut down all of those tractors, right? They couldn't use them. So they had that power to be able to do that. So I would, if I'm a farmer, I would stand up and take notice of that, considering what they're doing to food production, in so many different ways, whether it's cost of inputs, fuel, food production, supply chains, it's just all kinds of stuff that's happening.
Yes.
If you just refuse to listen to them and comply, and you keep farming, are they going to shut your tractor off? Right.
And when we get into, these smart vehicles, smart cars, not to completely digress, but I think, that's what's rumored to have happened with many of people's cars who have been hijackable. Most notably, Michael Hastings, Rolling Stone reporter. There's a report that his Mercedes-Benz was hijacked and driven at very high speeds into a tree. So I know you're absolutely right. It's a slippery slope with this, man. I mean, with a lot of the conveniences that come with a lot of our smart stuff, there comes that downside of being hackable. Not to mention what I talked about on our last episode is the expansion of all of advancements are based off of literally human child slave labor in the Congo, and not even just children, with the mining of cobalt. I mean, if you were to get in, look into it, ladies and gentlemen, all of our lithium batteries are powered by it, all of our smartphones, all of our tablets, all of our laptops, all of our electronic vehicles. And it's not a freaking racial thing. That's not why I'm saying that, but it's just literally we're so very selective how we're butthurt about this and that. We're all too fucking quick to pull out our smartphone and rock our tablet, which is powered by child slave labor, amongst,
here's something,
just human slave labor as well.
In terms of EVs, electric motorcycles, electric bikes, all of this stuff, I mean, it's common sense to sit there and say, and mind you, I got hit in the head for a living, but I've got a common basic working understanding of generating power, right? And the ability to have batteries on, say, a fat tired bike. And instead of running those batteries dead, why wouldn't you put a pulley system to a generator? That generator went in and powered the battery so they would never run out of power, just like you do, the way it's just common sense. So put a belt system to a generator or an alternator and have it keep supplying power to, the batteries, and you just keep supplying it so you never have to charge them again until they fry or whatever, right?
Yeah, you just replenish the batteries, but yeah, absolutely.
And that's something that there's some people who have rigged electric cars to have a pulley system that goes back up in and has a charging system that charges the battery, so they never have to plug their damn car in. It literally charges the batteries continuously. So that's what people should be doing, modifying the shit out of these things.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, I forget the guy's name, the guy who converted or came up with, but the hydrogen cell. He made the car and then he wound up dying of mysterious circumstances. I forget his name. I'm sure people who are listening to this know the guy's name. We had, I think we're talking to, not Jim Lee, but somebody else, and we had a very extensive conversation about alternative technologies and how they're definitely viable, what they did to Nikola Tesla, et cetera. And then these people wind up, whatever, disappearing, dying under mysterious circumstances and having their work, obfuscated, et cetera.
Well, and that's the thing is, the patents get hijacked and stolen, and now all of a sudden you've got Toyota coming out with a hydrogen power cell, and Honda, and other vehicles, other companies. But I was having a conversation. I was on a text chain with a bunch of people who are in and you should be in on this chain. You should be included on this. I need to include you in it. Because there's some pretty heavy hitters in alt media. But we were talking and kind of thinking, what's the next big shoe to drop? What's going to be the next big shoe to drop in terms of, say, with Russia and Ukraine or with Taiwan, with all these things? And I mean, nothing's off the table in terms of, potential even small tactical nuclear strikes or bigger. And it was a really interesting conversation with all of those people going, man, this is some hairy stuff, right?
Well, and that's the best way to look at it. Like, literally, nothing is off the table at this stage of the game. As we've talked about forever, and even our conversation with Flynn, going back to that, how the Grand Chessboard is shifting in huge ways. I don't know how it's going to play out, but it appears to be a certain shift towards Eurasia. But I mean, again, anything's on the table right now. Like I was asking Flynn, because I've always thought, back in the day in the 80s, it made mutually assured destruction. We're all going to nuke each other and it's all just going to be scorched earth. And I thought, like, why would we do that? Because then, we're all fucked at that standpoint. And here we are, however many years later. I was thinking the fact that we're so economically inextricably linked because of the global economy, that there's no way we would ever engage in a kind of war that would do that, assured destruction for everybody, scorched earth. And, Flynn brought up a great point. You can never take that. That's why he's Lieutenant General, of course. You can never take that off the table as far as a chess piece and a move to make. Will it happen as far as we think it of? Like you said, tactical. I don't know. I know what that means. It's not, everybody launches all the, and that's something I've wondered about. Could one country launch a nuke without everybody launching all of their stuff? Same with Taiwan. Well, if China invades Taiwan, we're going to come out and invade, it's all on and popping if they invade Taiwan. And I just don't think that'll happen. I think China could take Taiwan without a lot of fanfare. I'm just wondering, there's a lot of saber rattling when it comes to wartime stuff. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
But you go back to World War II, and that's the thing that I think about is, the British, it's pretty solid evidence that the British knew we were going to get hit by the Japanese at Pearl Harbor. They wanted us in the war. They wanted us to get hit.
Well, we knew too. We knew too. Not to get too deep into that, but we knew too.
Sure, but
certain warnings were made. Right,
but the economic sanctions we were putting on Japan when they were going into China and doing their thing and all of that. So obviously we've got similar economic situations. We've put an embargo and some other things on the Russian economy, and they brag about destroying the Russian economy. Well, there's a lot of homeless people in America now because of their dumbasses, right? And so it's always going to hurt the people. It's always going to hurt the citizens. It doesn't hurt the politicians. It doesn't hurt the elites.
Well, and the ruble's not doing as bad as they thought it was going to be. The ruble's not doing quite as bad as they thought.
Right, exactly. And, meanwhile, I just sit here, I think about it, and Biden, I mean, goes down to the border finally and does a photo shoot down there. I know we're jumping around a little bit here, but I sit there and I think about, I know a lot of Border Patrol guys, I've worked with some of those guys, and they're just disgusted. They're disgusted with what's going on. There's so many people, millions of people pouring across the border per year.
6,000 to 7,000 a day. 6,000 to 7,000 a day. That's insanity, bro. That's insanity.
It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Americans should not be accepting it at all. It is the Cloward-Piven on all fronts. This is just one area of breaking the bank up, destroying the American dollar, and putting us into poverty. It is bringing Americans to their knees when you've got, other powers, like I said, Argentina and China doing their monetary deal, their swap with their notes. You've got stuff going on at the border, people pouring in resources, money. You've got the Afghanistan debacle. You've got all these different things. You've got the printing of massive amounts of money. It is straight to the fucking bottom.
Well, you had I don't know the exact number, billions for border patrol of other countries other than our own that was in that omnibus bill. Which is just, again, on its face, man. Like you said, Cloward and Piven. I'm glad you brought that up. This is all by design, man. I'm sorry. I know we're the conspiracy folks, but none of this is by accident, man. It's not a whoops. We have 7,000 flooding over our southern border every day. We know what this is.
Well, you think about, here's the thing. It's very easy to see when they make statements that say you will own nothing and you're going to fucking like it. Sorry about dropping F-bombs, but I'm a little annoyed with everything. But when the economy implodes completely and people are out of work and they can't pay their mortgage and all those properties start getting sucked back, which it's been massive already. You've got BlackRock buying up massive swaths of properties and pools of notes and a lot of that going on. That's how this happens. And everybody's on their knees, and it's not acceptable that Americans that are intelligent, many of them, that will continue to comply until they are just groveling on their knees and begging for digital currency. It's unacceptable.
I would love to say it's not by design, but unfortunately, in my most humble opinion, when you talk about so many of these think tanks have talked about the revolution, the lockstep. I mean, I don't know. Is the UN smart city gulag inevitable for all of us, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, it seems like as much as we have so much fanfare and pushback and this and that, it just seems like it's just pushing towards that. And I hope there's going to be some measure of society that has some, like, no, I'm just not going to do it. And we create some kind of, I mean, I think balkanization is bad because when you start dividing people, but it's just, we might have to be creating some level of breakaway civilization where it's just like, all right, you guys are going to go over here, but it's not something it's it's not sustainable for us to do together. And I know that sounds very antiquated, and when I say segregation, it's just not just based off race. It's just like there's just certain people you just can't fuck with. And we're at the stage of the game where it's just like, this isn't sustainable.
No, unfortunately. And people, again, we've said for a long time, better be growing their own food. If you don't own your property outright, I don't know what to tell you, man. It's a little tough. It's going to be a little tough. I don't know how long it takes to get to that. I don't know how long it takes to get to that point, but yeah, try to downsize to something that you can pay off with a yard that you can grow your own food. You know, all the above. You know, I mean, if I didn't have I had it all planned out. Again, I had it all planned out, had it all figured out, what I was going to do. You'd be prepared, all that sort of stuff. And I hit some bumps in the road. And so I'm just telling people that have the wherewithal and the ability to, get prepared as much as you can.
Yes. Stay prepared. So you don't have to get prepared, right? And it doesn't have to be some scenario. Like, again, you got car insurance, you're not obsessing about getting in a car wreck. You got fire insurance, you're not obsessing about fires. You're just prepared. If you don't have to, you stay ready, you don't have to get ready type thing. It's better to have it, not need it, not have it. And it's just one of those things to have. One thing I have to ask you before we dip out here, champion. So, old BFF, Dana White was in the news recently. I don't know what the nature of your relationship is at this point. I know you guys have had your bumps in the road, but just give us your thoughts on his recent bump in the road as far as literally being on tape, hitting his wife like a couple times at a club, while also serving as the president of the UFC with all the, stakes that are involved with that. Also lecturing certain fighters about their domestic stuff. This is a conflict of interest. Does Dana gotta go? What are your thoughts on Dana's recent foray in the news, my friend?
Well, obviously, one thing I have not done is smacked my girlfriend or wife around. So I can speak to that, with a clear conscience. And when he used to say, and still saying now, it's not acceptable. And I'm not asking or saying that he should be fired. All I'm saying is this, is that if you're the CEO of the UFC and your job is to run the organization and hand down disciplinary action when it's necessary or cut fighters from their contracts for things that they've done wrong, including hit their girlfriend or wife. Well, how do you then move forward as someone who's done that on film? How do you discipline an athlete if he, lays hands on his woman or so-called a woman? So that's a difficult decision then, that he doesn't have the authority now. He's undermined himself in that area where he can't make the call, right? He really can't make that call. So that's something that I think that, the ESPNs of the world and, all the other sports networks, they've missed. They're not talking about it a whole lot anyway. But that's at least the question that should be. That's the question that should be asked. And again, then we look at UFC leadership in terms of, me having false information posted on the internet, which was carried by ESPN and other networks. Where I was falsely accused of things, being a racist and being a supporter of domestic terrorists and all this other bullshit. Everybody that knows me knows none of that's true. But the person that wrote it is a guy that is employed and under contract currently as an athlete with the UFC. Now, mind you, he was brought into the UFC to fight CM Punk. Well, I like Phil as a person, but Phil is not and never will be a fighter. He's just not. And, this gentleman was brought in because he might be just bad enough to lose to CM Punk, was the hopes. But again, nonetheless, this is a guy that goes around filming himself on airplanes and other places, calling white people snow roaches. And yet he's still under contract with the UFC while I lost my job, my broadcasting job, for false information that individual wrote. I've got a real problem with that. I do.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. As well you should. someone who's known you a very, very long time, the last thing, I mean, whatever, and this is the culture anymore. It's just the inference. It's just a picture with the wrong person. And it's one of those things where it's like you said, you lost your job, you lost your livelihood off some bullshit. And, people went around and exacerbated that problem, which didn't make your life any. But yeah, I just found that interesting when I saw that about Dana and, with the huge stakes that are involved in that company, William Morris, et cetera, and almost the media kind of blackout of it. I wonder how they move forward because he is, I don't know if he's the CEO, I think he's the president, but regardless of his role, he's definitely in charge of dictating people's careers based off of their, social media ups and downs, whether it's Jones or anybody else. So it's interesting how being in such a powerful position at that company, how they rationalize keeping him around while other people lose their jobs off of, it's interesting, dude. Dana White and his mom has been putting him on blast. I don't know if you've heard. I'm sorry, I hate to go down this kind of salacious road, but yeah, I just wanted to get your take on Dana. No, it's just your take on Dana White. And
what's his mom saying about
saying
it
like
now?
that relationship has been tumultuous for a very long time. And I mean, of course, the thing is like they've never hit each other, and I have no idea if they have or haven't. But Dana White's mom's, it's an unsurfaced interview from a while ago talking about the toxic relationship that him and but I don't know. I don't mean to be all freaking TMZ on it about it, but I just wanted to get your opinion on what happened with him. The news story, and like you said, and how poignant he is in the role in dictating other people's careers based off the same shit. Like he'll cut somebody and do this and that off of similar stuff, but of course, he's doing. I think I read something. Whatever, it could be complete horseshit. He's like, don't anybody tweet about it at ESPN or, just trying to keep, maintain this media blackout, but whatever. I mean, we're all works in progress, dude, but it's interesting how they rationalize keeping something like that in his position, having done something that he's fired people for doing much less for, but, it's the world.
Oh, yeah. So it is what it is. I think, I don't know. It comes down to how much money did he cost the parent company and the UFC. And one more thing, we have to talk about this, dude, before we get off of here. So Khabib,
he's done
recently. Well, here's the thing though. Here's my take on all of that. So we know that Bellator is for sale. It's rumored that it is for sale. And when Khabib ducks out stage left and says, I'm done, we know that there are some folks in Dubai who would like to own a major MMA organization. And I have a very strong feeling, we'll see if this plays out, but I have a very strong feeling that some folks from Abu Dhabi or Dubai are going to buy Bellator. They're going to pay handsomely for it, and they're going to make Scott Coker happy again because he sold him and his sports group sold Strikeforce before to the UFC for a pretty good amount of money. But I think that Khabib is going to come back in and he is going to be running that organization potentially. And the interesting thing about it is the timing with the stuff that happened with Dana and everything else around the sport right now and how crazy it is. And it's the perfect time for Khabib and some powerful folks from Dubai or Abu Dhabi, wherever, to come in, snatch up Bellator and go, here we are. We're ready to play and we're coming heavy, while the UFC's down, right?
Well, seemingly down. Anytime they say they're down, they're like, hey, we're the best profits ever, which I have no idea. I don't know what their books are, but I mean, like anything, everything is very cyclical, man. You can't stay on top forever, and competition's a good thing. I love it.
Yeah, competition is a good thing. It's for the athletes, but the thing is, they have raised pay-per-view prices in the past couple of years, 4 times. They're at $79.95 now or whatever. We're not going into a recession. We've been in a recession for quite some time, and it likely is going to get worse, and they keep charging more money. I don't know how long the consumer will put up with that, is what I'm saying.
Well, and this can become one of the things they're going to price themselves, not necessarily out of business, but if people can't afford to do it, they're just not going to be able to participate, buy some of that stuff and all that packaging that they're doing. Yeah, we'll see. That's an interesting take, because when I saw that, I'm like, I thought he just launched Eagle FC, but whatever, the thing is, he just wants to focus on his family and his children, et cetera, which could easily happen. But I was like, wow, why would you put so much energy into something just to dip out less than, a year and some change later? But he could be, man, that cat seems like a very focused individual. And
yeah.
I mean, he left at the top as champion in the UFC, undefeated, because he's like, I told my dad, once he died, I'm done. And he stayed, he stuck to his guns on that. But
right.
I could, like you said, I could see him coming back in some iteration still in the MMA world. He just said he's dipping out from Eagle FC right now. But wow, that's a very interesting take. And you're so right, man. The timing. And it's not the best PR right now for the UFC. A lot of fighters are unhappy. You got Jake Paul getting signed to PFL, et cetera. But yeah,
which
we'll
is
see,
huge
man.
News
That would
as
be
well, man. Very, very big news.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Well, champion,
right,
this has been another episode where we've
covered
some stuff in the world.
The gambit.
We did with a nice little wide swath of topics in the world. Yeah, it's an interesting time to be alive. It's always good. And I have to say, man, I don't know if you guys have had the chance to listen to, I think one of the GOATs in alternative news from way back in the day. If you get a chance, YouTube and find it. The conversation, her name is Kay Griggs. She's an absolute freaking hero. And I will just leave it at that, because the video and her interview is like 6, 7, 8 hours long. And what she has to give you guys is not straight heat. So check out Kay Griggs. And Patrick, thank you once again, my friend. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Good seeing you, buddy. Good talking to you. Thanks to all the people that are tuning in, and we've got some very interesting guests coming up.
We do, and check out the store, ladies and gentlemen. Check out the store. It's in all of our links that are attached to the description to the video. We got a Conspiracy Farm shirt up. We have a couple Self-Defense Warrior. If you can, champ, explain the one and the asterisk, because I've been asked a couple times, and it's like, what does that mean? And they were thrown off a little bit. What is that one?
So the number one, represents yourself, and the asterisk means one ass to risk, meaning get your shit together, be ready, be healthy, be squared away, one ass to risk. So, in the military and law enforcement world, that used to mean train, be very good at what you do so that you stay alive and you can help the others around you. That goes for the civilian population now, because we are being bombarded. People are getting sick. People are dying. Get healthy. Take care of your immune system. OrganicSuperSoldier.com, and pick it up, and that will help bolster your immune system, and it's helped a lot of people. We've got a lot of testimonials coming back from it. So, there you go.
Stay ready so you don't have to get ready, ladies and gentlemen. Peace and so much love. It's been a pleasure, champ. See you next time, guys.